I gotta go into the news station in about 2 hours, so we got some work to do. We're talking Toronto Raptors. Shams Charania reported that the Toronto Raptors are taking calls on OG Anunoby. However, OG Anunoby is not the top trade option. And the thing is the fact that OG still not the top trade option for the Toronto Raptors. Gary Trent. So let's talk about it. Mike Scotto also helping us out here with some of this information. Scotto says Toronto is a team that is still holding a lot of cards heading into the trade deadline and is considered the biggest wild card going into the deadline. And in an article that we reviewed by Mike Scotto earlier after the G League showcase, it's still true that according to NBA executives that spoke to Mike Scotto around the league, they do believe that Gary Trent Jr. still remains the top trade candidate for Toronto, as he just turned 24 and he's been averaging 18 or 19 points for the past 2 seasons. He has a player option, and given his age and market, people believe that if he does decide to opt out, teams are operating that they can re-sign him if they have the assets. However, OG Anunoby's the big name that's floating around, and we'll get there. We'll talk about OG because we know the Memphis Grizzlies are calling. Okay, Memphis is calling for OG. And they're saying that a Gary Trent deal can be similar to how they traded Norman Powell for Trent a little over, 2 years ago, or whatever it is. And it's because Trent might be looking for a Jordan Poole, Tyler Hero deal. And if he can think, an Anthony Simons deal is the low end for him. So that's just going to be a tough pill to swallow. And it comes down to here that people think that Trent might eclipse that. So for here, we got to get to OG Anunoby, who's going to be extension eligible. And he's arguably your best player next to Pascal Siakam. I mean, Scotty Barnes is great, but there's a bunch of rival executives who are saying the Memphis Grizzlies and the New York Knicks are making a run at OG Anunoby. We know they've offered them 3 first-round picks for OG Anunoby, the New York Knicks. But there is a mysterious that a team previously offered 3 first-round picks as well, and that team could be the Grizzlies. So we know 3 first-round picks allegedly is not enough to get OG Anunoby, as Toronto, believes they can get a better package. But Mike Scotto writes that he doesn't believe a better deal than 3 first-round picks and, a salary matching player is better than that. However, Murphy writes, let me shout out who Murphy is. Blake Murphy. Blake Murphy says this is the interesting part because OG Anunoby is still 25 years old, and there's upside there. Okay, this is a guy that a lot of people believe that he's being handicapped on the Toronto Raptors roster because he's not getting the touches that he would if he went to a different organization. There's teams that believe that. Imagine if he went to the Knicks. If he went to the Knicks, people believe he's an all-star. That if he goes to a different situation, he'll take that jump and join the upper echelons like a Paul George, did a few years ago. Paul George took a jump in Indiana, but, went from a super good defensive player who was averaging 15, 17 points a game to this 25 points per game score. And I think there's a lot of people that, with some of the metrics, he consistently ranks as one, if not the most versatile defender in the NBA. He can guard a ball-dominant player like a James Harden and then switch off and guard Joel Embiid in the same possession. He finishes at the rim at almost a 70% clip. OG Anunoby finishes at the rim at a 70% field goal percentage right there at the rim and a 37% three-point career shooter. For this year and next year, he's only making $18.6 million. And then he gets a player option in 2024 to 2025 season. So in terms of production per dollar and the ability to have him on your roster for the next 18 months, as he's seen as a guy who can universally plug and play on any team, there's a reason why people are really wanting him. And the other thing is that we're seeing it right here is the first round reports. The thing is when you dig into that, it means a lot of things. If that's 3 picks from a team at the top of the standing, that's different than the Lakers' 29 pick unprotected or 23 pick from the Wizards. We know Masai, Ujiri, and OG have a pretty strong relationship. And from what we're hearing, like that 3 first-round pick offer, they're at the stage that the Raptors aren't in a spot where anyone can be untouchable, but they won't trade anyone unless they're blown away. Saying they make a move at the trade deadline and then decide in the offseason they really need to get more aggressive and trade more pieces away. OG has tremendous value again in the offseason, and he has tremendous value at next year's trade deadline since his bird rights will go with him in any trade. So you have a chance to extend or re-sign OG if you were to trade him. So it would take quite a haul for Toronto to move OG Anunoby, in my opinion. Again, that's why Gary Trent and Fred VanVleet are considered the two most likely guys to be traded with. As here, we'll move over to Fred VanVleet for anybody who's curious. The locker room leader, they've been told that an extension talk of 4-year, $114 million was never going to be high enough for VanVleet, who's considered one of the top free agents. And he's expected to make similar to Drew Holiday money in the $30 to $35 million per year annual. And it seems like there's an understanding logistically that there's a possibility of him being long-term in Toronto, but there's obviously somewhere between Trent and Anunoby that if you look at the offers they get where Trent and VanVleet could potentially leave for nothing, you don't have a great means of replacing him. And I think they value VanVleet a lot higher than they do Trent. And I'm a big proponent of age, so I personally would rather keep Greg Trent and just try to find a new leader within the guys you have in your roster. But again, I'm not an NBA executive, so this is all hearsay. And it's just going to be interesting because of what we're hearing around the league. And for me, I do believe that with all the information that we're receiving, guys, this is going to be a move from the Toronto Raptors. Do I know? I have no idea. I can't sit here and be like, look, this is going to happen for a certainty. But I do believe that we could potentially see some players down the road. I also have said they should just trade away anyone who's old, okay, on this team. Let's just go young. Let's embrace the youth, and let's talk about it, because I think it's interesting. So I want to hear your guys' thoughts down below in, comment section. And if there was anything I might have missed, anything you guys would have liked to hear, OG Anunoby is absolutely a great player that I think we can all agree is fantastic to watch, and we hope for success. So if there's anything else, let me know. Goodbye.